Welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. And this morning we are discussing all things home. May is for moms. And when I think of home, just like the Wiz, it literally for me is a place where there is love overflowing. You know, it's a place where, like the movie Soul Food says, it's just good for the soul. And so today I'm joined by some amazing people where we can just talk about love, life, family, and we're going to get into some of our favorite foods with some of our favorite chefs. Today, we're joined by Dr. Tierney, Katrina Smith, Keena Wells, Chef Dee Dee Coleman, and Chef Rock Harper. Welcome in, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, good to see you folks. You know, when we think about May, you know, we've said this before, moms get everything. They're like the heartbeat of all that we do. And you all, you know, well, minus me and Dr. Tierney, we're not moms, but we're mom-like figures. And so we embrace everybody who is like a mom figure, and Chef Rock in his capacity, the roles that he plays, you know, in all the people's lives. And so as we begin our conversation today, I kind of want to just do an opening for everybody. What does when I think of home mean to you? I mean, all of us have come from different places from around, you know, the United States. And when I think of home, there's something that we always seem to think about, or it's a thought, it's a feeling, it's a meal. And so I'm going to start with Dr. Tierney. When you think of home, what does that reminiscent bring to you?
Yeah. So I am from Memphis, Tennessee. And so when I think of home, I think of blues and barbecue. Okay, I always like to joke and say I have barbecue sauce running through my veins. And so there's something about when I go home and just the pace of the city and you've heard kind of that Memphis grit, and it's a different feel every time I go home, and just the rhythm of the city, the blues that built the bricks of that city. And of course we have the best barbecue. Sorry, Texas. Sorry, St. Louis. Sorry, North Carolina. Memphis, we take the award on barbecue. So when I think of home, I think of blues and barbecue.
When she thinks of home, she thinks of blues and barbecue. And I'm going to tell you, I'm from Texas. We're going to fight you for that. But we're going to let you have it for this show today. Katrina, when you think of home?
When I think of home, I am from Hampton, Virginia. I'm from the 757. I think of all things seafood, crab cakes. If you're from Hampton, you know about chicken sea. If you know, you know, right? Think about a big chick sandwich. I think about that feeling of this feeling warm inside, and the loving feeling of your family, and just, you know, being embraced and being able to be comfortable with yourself. So home to me is just one of the most wonderful places on the world.
Oh, I love a good seafood boil. You know I do. Chef Rock Harper, when you think of home?
Yes, well, first of all, I know some people that were willing to argue with Dr. T on that barbecue thing, but we're going to leave that there for all. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia, and a little bit of Rappahannock, Virginia as well. So my grandmother and I was raised in Alexandria. And as the chef, I'm gonna go a little left, maybe unbeknownst to everybody, but I think of security, right? I think of safety and comfort and warmth of both of those places, or wherever my mother, wherever my grandmother were, and that came in the form of, you know, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which we're not known for, or incredible chicken pot pie or braised short rib. But all of it, as I've grown, I come to understand the way the world is and what was outside of home, whether it be in Alexandria or Tappahannock, and the safety and warmth and love that they showed me, that they provided for us, I should say. Really, when I think of home, that's what I think of just that cocoon of love that both of our queen mothers provided for us.
Oh, wow. I can agree with that safety and security, you know, of home. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth to the next person I'm going to ask a question. But for now, Keena Wells, when you think of home?
Well, I'm going to go back to Dr. T. So now you got 2 for 1, because I'm right down below Memphis, and Holly Springs, Mississippi is where home is for me. But definitely going to second that. We got the best barbecue on that end. Coming out of the South, my husband has won a couple of competitions in the Memphis barbecue cook-off. So I'm right there with you, dripping that barbecue. But also with Chef Rock, when I think of home, it was 3 generations when I was coming up. My grandmother, my mom, it was me, it was my cousins. Every year, all of my family would just come back to the small town, my grandmother's home. So I think of warmth. I think of family, faith. We went to church every Sunday, but we always came home and she made sure we all had dinner together around the table, shared the things that were happening in our lives. So I think of that centerness that keeps us together as a family and the generations that we continue to share that with.
Outstanding. I mean, gosh, you know, makes me want to go home. You know, I am from Houston and I love Texas, and there is something about going home. I always say there's no taste like home, because I literally go there to eat. Chef Didi, when you think of home?
When I think of home, I think about family, and so much food that you don't know where to start. Growing up, we went to church every Sunday. And then when I think of home, I think about going to grandmama's house, or not grandmama, Medea's house on Sundays. And my mom sneaking me that roast with that great gravy that I still yet to get all these years later, that roast and rice, and then going home and my mom having the, traditional Sunday dinner. When I think of home, I think about family, coming over to my mother's, and especially on holidays like Easter Sunday and Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we did it traditional. So we did all the turkey and the ham and the cornbread dressing and the collard greens and candied yams, macaroni and cheese. And so I am so happy to be able to continue those traditions now that my mom has gone to glory. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama, so I go home every either Thanksgiving or Christmas, and I fix those things for family. And then when I'm not there, I definitely do it here in Houston, where I reside now, where my businesses are, where my family is, and just kind of, do what mama does in the kitchen. So when I think of home, I also think of me and mama in the kitchen, fixing all this food for all the family.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I want to just dive in with Kina and with Chef Didi, because you said tradition and being able to pass down food traditions. Kina and Chef Didi, what does that look like when we think about passing down food traditions or bringing food traditions down that have been passed on to us?
Well, I can go first. So when you think of tradition, you think about what your family does in different seasons. Like I said before, with our Easter Sunday is coming up. So I already know that, my family from Montgomery, they probably won't do a lot because my mother is no longer there to kind of, cook all the food or whatever. But me, being the one that, as a little girl, watched her every move in the kitchen. So I know exactly how she cooked every meal, what ingredients she used, the love that she poured into it. So that was passed down to me from my mother. So now I'm able to come, and of course they'll miss it. They love to see me come into Montgomery to, cook like my mama. But this Sunday I'll be at my home, Resurrection Sunday, and I'm gonna be cooking, the turkey, the ham, the dressing, the macaroni and cheese. But then also when you make new traditions with my, your new family, like I've been married for 19 years. I have 4 children, 2 bonus children and 2 of my own. So they watch me as well. So I want them to also be able to grab on to those traditions, but then make new memories with their family as well. At Cooking with a Twist, I've been able to take my mother's recipes and develop new recipes, kind of bring it current so that I can teach these recipes to my participants that come into the cooking class. So that's what it's all about. It's just about grabbing a hold of those things that you grew up with, those foods, those traditions, making them your own, and keeping that love though that you were able to grasp onto when my mom was cooking those meals. So that's what I think of when it comes to tradition and making your own traditions as well.
I love that, because traditions play a vital role in who we are and what we do. When we come back after the break, I'm going to talk to Keena Wells, and we're going to continue what it talks about relating to traditions, how we pass them on, and what it means to really allow ourselves to dive in to good home cooking. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
We begin tonight with the people who are really running the country right now. Now, Trump is often wrong and misleading about a lot of things, but especially about history. Donald Trump falling in line with President Elon Musk.
In the wake of the unsettling news that MSNBC has canceled Joy Ann Reid's primetime show, The Readout, Roland Martin and the Black Star Network would like to extend an invitation to all of the fans of Joy Ann Reid's MSNBC show to join us every night to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming on the Black Star Network for news, discussion of the issues that matter to you, and the latest updates on the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump and his unprecedented assault on democracy, as well as co-president Elon Musk's takeover of the federal government. The Black Star Network stands with Joy Ann Reid and all folks who understand the power of Black voices in media. We must come together and never forget that information is power. Be sure to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered weeknights, 6 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/Roland S. Martin, or download the Black Star Network app.
Welcome back, everybody. Keena, let's talk about traditions for a moment. And in your work and what you do with Creative Solutions, you are, child, a wife of one and mom of 9. And I know that there are multiples of families that watch our audience, and they also are learning, how do you do what you do, and what does that mean as it relates to the home?
That's a perfect segment into that, because the thing is, you learn as a mother of 9, and bringing up different generations of children and seeing the differences of how they are. It's the same thing with traditions. There are things that are going to be the same. There are things that are going to work the same, but each time you have a new child, there are things that are going to be very different because they have their own individuality. It's the same with tradition, with food. It's the same with tradition, with the things that we learn, how to take care of our families and how to take care of our homes. So bringing all of that into the perfect combination helps me to sustain. So I have to pull a little bit from tradition from what I got from my grandmother. I have to pull a little bit from tradition for what I get from my mom. But at the same time, I bring my husband in. He came from a big family as well. He jokes about it, but he had like 23 uncles and aunts, so like, and I didn't know that when I married him. I probably should have checked that background, and maybe we wouldn't have 9 kids, but we're here. So, and I take that but we bring our traditions together. So that's how we move forward now. That's what sustains us now. We take a little bit from what he learned growing up. We take a little bit from what I learned growing up, but we also allow our children to bring their own individuality into the things that make our home a home today. So that's food. We get a kick out of knowing that we bring traditional recipes along. I know how to make biscuits from scratch simply because I cooked. I stayed in the kitchen with my grandmother, but I also learned from my mom how she did some things as well. And then I let my children, who are also very gifted in baking and cooking, bring their own tradition in. Like, what are they learning in school or things now? So we bring all of that together to make our home what we have today.
So that's a perfect segue, because you talk about making food from scratch. I can't remember the last time I tried to do anything from scratch. Katrina, Chef, and Dr. Tierney, when she talks about from scratch, I'm gonna start with Chef Rock Harper, because teaching kids how to do things from scratch is one thing. And then, Dr. T, you cook and Katrina bakes. I try to stay out of the kitchen as much as possible. So Chef Rock Harper, when we talk about how we teach tradition and pass those things down, where does it start with from scratch and the love that comes from making things from scratch?
Well, I think that it depends on who you are, right? You said you're not in the kitchen, and quite frankly, when I'm in the kitchen, everybody can't come in there, right? You got to want to be in there. And I remember that with my sisters, myself, I wanted to be in there. I wanted to learn from my grandmother and my mother. So from scratch for me, I want to know everything. I want to know how she was picking the pecans up, to make the pie. I want to know how she was growing the apples and the grapes to make the applesauce, and to just pick the grapes and put them with what she was doing. And I wanted to be in the kitchen. I understood. Even after that, I wanted to see everything. When people were serving, when she was serving the rolls after church to round to the community. But I think that I won't act like I'm an expert, because I have 3 children. I can't do it like Mrs. Wells, of course, ever. But I think that what I've learned is that you got to figure out where people can get in and where they can fit in. She said something about what they're learning at school. So maybe they're really excited about science or math, and if you're baking, maybe they're the ones that are very organized. So they need to set the table or go gather some things. But they're not the creative ones that necessarily, or creative in the sense that want to put together the dish. So for me, it's just, hey, what excites you about? My son, both my sons, all 3 of my children actually are artists. They love drawing and writing and creating different things. So I remember one time when my oldest Elijah was really little, I had him write the menu, what we were making that night. I forget what it was, spaghetti, meatballs, but he made this beautiful, colorful menu. Now he does like to cook, but that was his entry point. And my grandmother found my entry point. My mother did as well. But I think it's really important, as we talk about tradition, to understand that everybody's not going to be a great cook, and everybody, quite frankly, doesn't necessarily love the food, right? Some people, it's okay. They can eat either way. But I think what's really what I hear as a thread is that the traditions and the gathering and the warmth and security, those memories are super important, and we have to, make sure that those continue to happen. So no matter how we get in the kitchen or around the food, I just want you there. And some people, I got a couple cousins, I ain't gonna say their name out loud. They just, as I sit right here, look at this bar, they tending bar, they just popping the beer, but we need them around, and that's the most important ingredient.
Absolutely. Dr. Tierney.
Okay, so to answer this question, let me amend. Yes, I can cook. I do not like to cook. So my entry point is not to be the one that's in there cooking the meal. I come from a long line of cooks. My mother's side, my grandfather, he was the pit master. He's the one that taught me how to barbecue and how to make them good collard greens. And my father's side, my grandmother was, chef extraordinaire. Like, she could cook everything. And so I come from a long line of cooking. So cooking is just in my bones. Like, I can get in the kitchen and, just like, oh, I want to eat this, and just, make it. And they're like, how did you do that? I don't know. It just seemed like it just go together, but in terms of liking to do it, no, I would be the one, as Chef Rock said, I'd be the one, let me make out the menu. Let me write that thing out. So cooking is not something that I just really enjoy doing. I love doing, unless it's something that I really want to eat, unless it's something that has a deep connection for me. So in saying that I don't like to cook, but I love to barbecue, that is something that because it's connected to that time of me and my grandfather under the carport, him showing me his technique that I will not tell anybody. That is a secret. Because of that, when I get that feeling like, oh, I want some good old ribs, and I won't go and buy them, I will go and get the meat, prepare it, season it, do everything that he taught me to do, put my barbecue hat on so that the smoke won't, get in my hair, and spend all day, outside at the grill, and that takes me back to that place where I was just being granddaddy's girl, where it was just he and I, nobody else, and so when it comes to traditions, when it comes to, cooking, you have to also decide, okay, what is it that I like doing? So if we're saying from scratch, from scratch for me is, okay, I took this box cake and I added some extra eggs and a little bit more butter and a little bit more milk, and it tastes just like homemade. But for me, that's from scratch. I'm not going to sit here and roll out no flour, and no, I'm not going to sift and do all of that. Like, that's not my, my deal. But the way that I was taught how to do these different things and the people that it's connected to, that's what really matters for me when it comes to cooking and traditions and from scratch, even if it's from a box.
I can relate to that just a little bit. I'll share quickly, and then I'm going to run to Katrina. I would say for me, then it would be my fried green tomato recipe. It is one that I have perfected over the years, even since I was a kid. And I literally eat fried green tomatoes every day. And Chef Rock and Chef Didi, please don't tell me that that's bad for me, because I love fried green tomatoes, and I love, love, love my dry and my wet and how I make them. And it's just amazing. But we'll come back to that. But let me ask Katrina, from scratch, you do a few things. What would that be, ma'am?
Oh, from scratch, we're going to talk about rice pudding. I learned at an early age from my grandmother how to make rice pudding and bake pound cakes. That's something when we talk about tradition, that was something we shared, that opportunity and time together, just to be together, laugh, giggle, and do all those things. And I've been very fortunate. I have 3 children, and every one of them can bake, and they can bake from scratch. And it amazes me to see my young men, adult men now, when I go to visit them and they have a pound cake and they're like, Mom, I tried a new flavor. You want to taste it? It brings me a lot of joy, because that's something I've been able to share with them that I learned from my grandmother. And so having those moments that we just sit around and laugh and giggle and just, it's a bonding time. It makes me feel good in the inside. But believe me, that's all I'm making from scratch. I'm retired from cooking. I've raised 3 children. I have 3 grandchildren. So some days there's nothing in that kitchen that is getting made unless it's a bowl of cereal. So there's something to be said for that.
I think that's funny, because all of us, some people run to the kitchen, they enjoy cooking. And then others of us have an aversion. I meal prep. So I cook once a week, and then I may, if I have to fix something to go with it, I'll fix a vegetable or maybe a meat in the middle of the week to add to it. Awesome. In this hustle and bustle and the busyness, let's go around. What is something quick that you would fix that you enjoy in a quick fix? Kina.
I mean, people may not think it is, but spaghetti is a quick fix for me. And it's also one that I can add to. It's going to get me, a couple of days. And I feel like the sauce is better on the second day. But that too, pulling that in is quick for me. The prep is quick, and I can get it on the table quickly.
Absolutely. Chef Rock Harper.
It's either rice and beans, if I have some beans already prepared, or canned beans is all good, or like Kina, a quick pasta, some sort of protein and some veg in it. That always does the trick. Super simple, very quick.
Chef Didi.
What's quick for me is I'll just pan sear some, maybe some blackened chicken. I'll make I know this is extra, but make the house-made blackened seasoning instead of going to buy it. I always like to do everything homemade. Maybe some red or white potatoes, saute a little red bell pepper and onion, and some broccoli. Yeah, BLT, those types of things. That's a quick fix for me.
Okay. Katrina, your quick fix.
Chicken and rice. That's quick and easy.
Down and dirty, chicken and rice.
Yes, sear the chicken in the pan, do your rice, chicken and rice.
Dr. Tierney.
And I am about to prove what I said, that I do not like cooking. So my go-to quick fix here, say within the past year or so, is a dense bean salad, where I'll get a can of white beans, some fresh, yellow or red peppers, maybe some onion, a rotisserie chicken that I've chopped up, put it in a bowl, put a little vinaigrette on it. It's vegetables, it's your fiber, it's your protein. Stick it in the fridge, and voila, that's a meal.
That's a meal. Hey, I can agree with all of that. When we come back after the break, let's talk desserts. I know that you guys have some great recipes. So if you guys who are viewing want to send in some of your favorite dessert recipes that remind you of home, we'll happily show them. But also, I want to talk to our guests about your favorite dessert and what it reminds you of every time you have it. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Welcome back, everybody. And we're talking all things food. We've talked about quick fixes. We've talked about safety and security. We've talked about the meals that remind us of our moms and our muddies and all those people who poured into our lives that bring us joy about being in the kitchen. But the best part of the evening is dessert. Oh, I know. Some of you eat dessert before you have your meal. So let's talk about it. Dessert. Oh my goodness. I would have to say my favorite dessert is, I don't know where y'all from, pecan pie. Not pecan, but pecan. My favorite dessert is pecan pie, whether it's pecan or pecan cheesecake, homemade, regular. You guys remember you'd go on a family road trip and you stop at the gas station and you get that little Bama pie in the little tin can? Even if I can get one of those, I will say that is still one of my favorites. Now, I've never tried to make it, y'all. But let's talk about dessert. And I'm going to start with Chef Rock Harper. Where does dessert fall in the spectrum of, tradition and culture and food for us?
Whew. Well, looking at the scale this morning, it's pretty high where it falls. But I think dessert, that's one of those, we talk about music and dance, and one of those universal languages. I think a sweet treat, something sweet, right, is really big in our culture. It's definitely big in the restaurant business. And I think for us, or for me, I should say, pound cake is really high up there. My grandmother made an incredible pound cake. She made it phenomenal. Anything with apples, but she also made a phenomenal pecan, one of those pies with that nut in it. And I think because it's sweet, because of the sugar and what it's doing in the brain, and it's so good, and it's just that nice little thing at the end that you can't wait to get to. It's just that nice little unexpected or expected surprise, and then you pair it with a little coffee, decaf or maybe a little after dinner drink. It's just it's just, as they say, chef's kiss. My mouth is watering even thinking about dessert right now. But for me, it would be pound cake or pie. Just send me over. Now, a close, a 1B is sweet potato pie. I can eat a sweet potato pie. I could eat a whole pie by myself any time of the year, not just Thanksgiving. And I got to stop talking because I'm getting hungry.
He wants dessert right now.
Yeah.
Chef Dee.
So I kind of grew up on bread pudding. So I took that recipe that actually my aunt did, and now we make different types of bread pudding. So it could be a white chocolate bread pudding, a berry bread pudding, chocolate chip bread pudding, and we do this really good cream and glaze sauce to go with it. But traditionally, if you're talking about tradition, the favorite dessert for my family is German chocolate cake. And I make it exactly like my mom did. As a matter of fact, I have this little card, the recipe card, and I promise you all, it's all beat up. So I've had to take a picture of it so I can have it, so I can make that German chocolate cake exactly the way my mom did it. But I am the type of person that I'll eat dessert before I eat my dinner, my lunch, my anything. I'm get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and grabbing some type of sweet. So, Chef Rock, I feel you, brother.
Absolutely. Tina Wells, now it's not just dessert for you, but it's for the whole crew. What's your favorite dessert? And do you have to fix multiples of different things for the children?
So actually, no, they are pretty easy. Favorite dessert, banana pudding. And I'm talking old school banana pudding. Like you're mixing and you're cooking your banana mixture, and then you're letting it cool off, and then baking, and then making sure that you chill whipped cream and all that after. But my kids love banana pudding, but they pretty much love just about anything. And I mentioned we have a couple of bakers. Like our girls were making lemon bars from scratch, like at 6. So it just came naturally. So if they don't like what we have, they'll get in there and do their own, or they'll have their own little competition. But banana pudding seems to be the thing. My son actually is in his senior year of college, and he makes banana pudding for his classmates, as a thing. So it has carried on into their adulthood, I would say.
That's amazing. And it is nice that those things do carry on, from when we were children to teenagers and now into adulthood. Katrina, what's your go-to dessert?
Okay, so my go-to dessert that I like to eat is strawberry shortcake or anything with apples. But if you ask me what my go-to dessert to make is a apple, it's like an apple, you throw everything in the thing and bake it. It's so easy, but that's probably my go-to dessert. I would have said pound cakes, but you know what? Chef Rock and them probably do much better than me. My boys can even outbake me now in pound cakes, so I don't even make them anymore. So yeah.
Okay, so before I ask Dr. Tierney, just by a show of hands, how many of you all look at the menu at a restaurant and decide whether or not you're going to stay if there is dessert that is good? And I think our audience is raising their hand as well. I literally say, I'm going to determine what I'm going to eat based on whether or not I'm going to have dessert. And I think that is an important part of, just the fact that, as Chef Rock said, dessert is one of those things. It's the culminating of the end of a good meal. It's, having that dessert with tea, coffee, or for those of you who like Baileys and cream, just your after dinner Kahlua. All of those things fall in to place for us. So Dr. T, what's your go-to dessert? And do you bake any?
So I should probably start this by saying I like dessert, but dessert doesn't like me. I have to be very careful with my sugar consumption because it could tip the scales into some other health issues. So I typically, when I raise my hand, I thought you were saying look at the menu to see what's on the menu before I go to that restaurant. But I really don't get into dessert that often. I've had to cut out quite a bit. of my dessert just so I can stay healthy. And I want to say that because a lot of times when we are talking about our foods and traditions, and there are things that I grew up eating that I would always eat, that by the time 40 came around that corner, it was like, sugar, you can't eat that no more. You have to kind of push back from that. And dessert was one of those things that I had to start being intentional about pushing back from. But having said that, my go-to dessert when I am having dessert that I love is caramel cake. I love a good caramel cake, and that's actually the one dessert that I when I get into the feeling of making that caramel cake, because I have to sit there and make that caramel from scratch. It's probably one of the only things that I really do truly make from scratch. Is that caramel. It takes a while, but it is so worth it. And that caramel, I use it on the cake, and then I have some left, and I'll use it for like some apples. It's like a dip for my apples. And so caramel cake is probably my go-to when I'm just really like, I want a good dessert and I don't mind getting in the kitchen and making it. This caramel cake.
I like that. Now, I want to ask Chef Rock Harper, because he's sitting in his restaurant. He's there at the bar. Chef, I've noticed that there are dessert drinks now. I mean, growing up as a kid, a dessert drink was you could get a root beer float, an orange float, a shake. But we've gotten a little fancy with the types of desserts that are dinner dessert drinks that are on menus. What are some of the good options for people who, as Dr. Tierney said, don't want to consume, like me, a whole piece of cheesecake, or like you, a whole sweet potato pie? There are some good dinner dessert things to have. What are some that you would recommend?
Well, one thing I know about America is we're going to give you sugar. We can give you sugar a million ways. So Dr. T is definitely correct in the sense that we need to be careful about that. And restaurants have continued to be creative with this. One of my favorites, the easy favorite is sharing, right? So, the old cheesy line from a restaurant, all of our desserts come with 2 forks, but sharing. But a dessert drink is good. You mentioned coffee earlier with a little, maybe a liqueur, some sort of creme liqueur is a good one. I've seen, maybe like a dessert wine, like a Russian ice wine or something like that, where it's sweet. And you can pair that with, and these are kind of natural sugars, right? They're not added sugars in a dessert wine or, an ice wine or something like that. And you can pair that with something that isn't really high in sugar. So it may be some sort of cookie or biscuit, depending upon where you are, that isn't really, or it's just some fresh fruit. So you get sort of that sweet fix. I've seen I'm in a bar and I've seen boozy milkshakes, right? Or boozy, concretes or whatever, where people are having alcohol and sort of these, these milkshakes, kind of the kid and the adult combination. But I think, and the other day I had an espresso. I'm trying to remember where it was, but I asked for a double espresso, and they served it with this really little, I think it was a shortbread cookie. And it was perfect. It wasn't super sweet, the shortbread cookie. It was just enough just to contrast with the bitterness of the espresso. And I actually, because I wanted, it got me a little, I said, I got another espresso because I wanted another cookie. I should have just asked for that, but I needed the caffeine. But what I appreciated was the restaurant gave me that nice little sweet treat. I didn't have to get a big dessert. It was a value thing. They gave me something I didn't expect, so it was beautiful. So I think, finding that sweet little mix, there's so many different options that you can get at a restaurant.
Thank you for sharing that, Chef Rock. When we come back, everybody, after the break, let's talk about what it means to gather around the table. This is May, we're talking about moms, but there are other opportunities that will be coming up over the summer, Father's Day, summer picnics, and all of those things. And we just need to gather around the table. When we come back in a moment after the break.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. And we're talking about moms, we're talking about tradition and culture and food and all the things that surround these momentous occasions in all of our lives. But some of the things that we do as a people, we've gotten away from, and that's coming around the table, except for special holidays. So let's talk for a moment about what it means to gather around the table. Welcome back, everybody. Because when we think about gathering around the table, oftentimes it's because something has happened in our lives and we want to have these serious family conversations, and we're talking about money and madness and all of those other things. But, you know, in these times, when we're talking about balance and being able to just have some levity, when we gather around the table, is laughter still a part of who we are and what we do? You know, when we consider just how we can take the heaviness out of all the societal things that we face. I'm going to start with Katrina. What role does being at the table and sharing laughter bring to your family and your household?
I think being around the table allows us to fellowship with one another. I think growing up, that was the place. Everybody came to the kitchen. We sat around the table. We talked about everything. As people say, we put everything on the table. We laughed, we cried together, we fellowship, all over good food. But that was the one place in the house where everybody came. When somebody came to your house, your grandma, your mom, your big mama would say, you want something to eat? And you go to the table because that was a safe place where you could just take your armor off and have an honest conversation. So I think the table symbolizes to us a place where we are able to be ourselves, we're able to put our guard down and just have those open and honest conversations.
Open and honest conversations. I love that. Kina, what does that look like for you? What does it mean to come to the table?
So we have this thing where we say, let's disconnect so that we can reconnect. So I give you your time, I give you your space, like you have your friends, you have everything that's going on. But when we truly want to bring us to the heart of the house, that's the table, we say, let's disconnect from everything else and let's really try to center and focus on those of us that are at the table. So we made sure we got a table that was big enough to seat everybody. So we have seats at the bar stool right behind us. And then we have a table that's going to seat 8 or more. Like you can still pull up chairs, but it's enough to where you don't have an excuse. Let's connect. Let's leave your devices, leave the things that are happening in the world. But when you come to the table, come with that mentality. We call it faith, family, food, and fun. We want to laugh. We want to talk about the things that are happening in our lives that are important that you haven't had a chance to share. Maybe you haven't connected with your siblings. I don't know. But that is the time that we say, just give us this one moment. We're going to have this one dinner, and it doesn't have to be a birthday or a holiday, but leave everything out, bring your family in.
I love that. Love that. Chef Didi.
Oh my God. When I think about sitting around the table, it brings back so many memories. It's family and laughter. We sit around the table. All of, the family is there. And you're listening to stories of old. So all, your uncles, your aunts, they're talking about, things that they did when they were small, listening to stories of your grandmother and your mother and what they did when they were, coming up, and just listening to all of these amazing stories and laughing and having a good time, sitting at the table with just some good food. And we call those just soul food Sundays with family. Everybody would come to my mom's. We're sitting around the table and we're just listening to all of these great memories of when my mom and all my aunts and uncles were growing up and just having a good old family good time.
Absolutely. Chef Rock Harper.
Yeah, I am. I'm speechless, or I'm thinking about what Chef Didi and Keena said about disconnecting and reconnecting and the gathering and the laughs. It's all of that for us. I think that, in the restaurant business, we have to get back to that. Here, we're going to be doing some dinners where, we take away your cell phones, right? And there's a device-free environment, and we're just going to be passing plates and just reconnecting, because I think as society, definitely as a people, we have to get back to that. For us in our family, I think on a micro level, we have to ask ourselves, how many times are we enjoying meals or consuming food, I should say, when there's a screen in front of us or there's a device close by. It doesn't take that long to just enjoy your meal, to actually be there and present with just yourself or someone's around you. Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Buddhist monk, said that everything can be a meditation as long as we're supremely focused on it. And I think that what we used to have was 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have the devices in the way. So all we had was the fun and the fellowship in front of us. And the devices can support that later on. But I think it's really important for us to get back to talking. And even if it's, who made these greens? We do that anyway. But, being present with it as opposed to texting your cousin across the room, I think is really important. And we're getting there. I don't want to sound negative, but it's super important. And I think we're continuing to move in that direction.
Absolutely. I can appreciate that. I don't know if I'll give my restaurant my cell phone, but I'll put it in my handbag if I have to.
Valet. We'll valet it for you.
I'm going to valet my phone. I like that.
Sometimes it's always good. I know when you say the cell phones, and I really, really, really was able to appreciate having my phone, because I would record my uncles, my mom, especially when they told the stories of, when they were growing up and different things that we love to hear. But just take the time, if you are going to have your cell phone, and just record your mom, record your grandmother, record your uncles, your aunts, your kids. Make those memories something that you can have, because even now that my mother has passed, I get my phone and I go back and I look at the recordings that I did of her. And it just brings me so much joy to have those memories. So if you are going to use the phone, use it in a great way. Make memories with that. Record everything that you can, so that you'll have those lifetime and lasting memories.
I like that. Dr. Tierney.
Yeah, I agree with both what Chef Rock and Chef Didi said. So my grandparents are 93 and 92. And so I've done the recording. I've taken my actual camcorder home and recorded Granddaddy making those greens, and recorded, him in action. And it's so good to have that and be able to go back and play that and watch that and see it in real time. And especially when I get ready to make those greens or fire up the barbecue grill, I'm like, what did he say? And I can go back and watch it. And it's not just me reading the recipe, but actually me engaging with him in real time, and one day he's not going to be here. And so I'm going to I already cherish those recordings, but it'll have that much more of a place in my heart because I took the time to have that recording and have that time with him. But I also agree with what Chef Rock was saying, and it's something that I actually practice in my own home. So as I said, I do not have children. I come from a big family, but right now my family is a family of two, my husband and I. And so we make it intentional that we have dinner together, and so when I cook, or even if it's just, getting pizza, like we don't sit in front of the TV. We actually sit at the table, and we don't use our phone, if a text message comes in, and we'll, respond to the text message. But it's just like this unspoken agreement that he and I have, that regardless of whatever happened in the day, regardless even if we're upset with each other, we're still going to sit at the table, and we're still going to have this meal together, have this time together, even if after that meal, he has to go back, to whatever it is that he's working on, or I have to get back to something that I'm doing in my business. We're going to take time to connect in that moment, have the conversations or laugh with each other, or, even if it's, and I'm just being real, even if it's that we're sitting here eating and we're just staring at each other because I really don't like you right now, but we're going to be intentional about coming to this table so that connection is still, is still there on that micro level. Then if one day God does, the family, that foundation will already be there, and so it starts with two and then it can multiply outward from there.
I love that. I know we got to go to a break and I'm going to give my reflection, but we like to call in orders in our family. I want to know from you guys, what is the one dish that has to be on the table and it has to be made by a specific person? I know that wherever I go home or when I go home, my sister-in-law, Lavita, and her corn casserole has to be on the table. And I don't care what gathering it is. So think about that for a moment. Who and what dish has to be on the table when you show up? I'm going to start with Katrina.
So my mom doesn't cook anymore. So a lot of times when I go home, I bring it. But I would say my kids would say when they come home, one dish that has to be on the table is homemade macaroni and cheese. And now my daughter makes it. That would be the one dish that has to be there.
Mac and cheese. Chef Dee.
It has to be collard greens with homemade cornbread. And we don't eat it with a fork. We get that cornbread and, get it in those greens and eat it. So, definitely collard greens and cornbread.
All right, Keena.
So being married to a chef is sometimes kind of funny because they be like, we just get Jannard to make it. Just get Chef Jannard to make it. No, but really though, the one thing that I know that I do well that I'm asked for is my potato salad. It's from scratch, always. And that's one thing that I can do well. Dressing, maybe not so much, but for him, it's pretty much anything. They're always interested in trying the things that they see that he makes on his shows or whatever that may be. So any of that. And for my mom, a little bit of that tradition, her spaghetti, hands down.
Absolutely. Chef Rock Harper.
You're going to get me in trouble with this one, but there are two things. One, if my mother can make, it's not super traditional, she can make a pot of beans like nobody's business. I don't care what kind of bean it is. It's just so comforting. So I always encourage her to make her beans. And my sister, Hawanya, she pot roast, again, just I need that on the menu and the beans, and we'll figure the rest out.
All right, absolutely. Dr. Tierney.
So it's either my Aunt Patrice's spaghetti or they're calling me, of all people, to bring that baked macaroni and cheese.
Okay. So everybody has something that they enjoy. And I think that is a part of home. When we're back, I'll give my reflection.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Welcome back, everybody. As you can tell, faith, family, food, and fun are not only a part of our traditions, our history, and our culture, but it is a part of what makes us who we are today. Whether it's something we got from our big mama, our mima, our grandmother, or our favorite aunt, we love to eat, have fun, and sit around the table and laugh. I pray that your month with your mom or the woman who raised you brings you all the joy that we've expressed today. Thanks for watching. Bye now.